In the war for India, a great army of soldiers and elephants has proven unstoppable. But in the year 260 BC, they face their worst enemy, distance. Victory lies first in reaching the battlefield intact, a battle all its own. The outcome will decide the fate of a kingdom. After a century of conquest, the Mauryan Empire stretches across most of India. The new king, Ashoka, gazes from his balcony, master of all that he sees and much more beyond. But it's not enough. He wants the rest of India and summons his troops. Across the water from the capital, Pataliputra, a young archer answers the call to war. Like him, most recruits come willingly, except the most important. Required to stand at least 10 feet tall, they must have intelligence, loyalty, and hides like iron. There are no volunteers. Each must be drafted. A pit is dug, then covered in branches. The trap is sprung. In the battle that looms, hundreds of these beasts will decide the outcome. The Mauryan army, 2,200 years ago, was as well organized as any that came before it or after. The chain of command was well forged. The manuals of war governed the least detail. Nothing was left to chance if a rule could be thought of to cover it. Day and night, the army's scribes drew up battle plans to be delivered to Ashoka for his review. 6 soldiers encircle and protect a horseman. 5 horsemen encircle a war elephant. Yet so disciplined is this army that when it charges as one. The young warrior knows exactly where he will fight, on one of the lead elephants. The thought fills him not with fear, but pride, just as the army was not a choice, but a birthright. Like his father and his father's father, he belongs to the Kshatriya, the warrior caste. They are born to fight. Every morning, the army's elephants are brought out of the city to be watered and fed. Unlike the warrior, they weren't born to fight, but now have no choice. Life is cheap in Ashoka's realm, but some lives are cheaper than others. Any man who causes the death of an elephant is executed. As a Mauryan scribe records, they are the foundation of Ashoka's army.
A king relies on elephants for achieving victory in battles. With their very large bodies, they are able to do things in war which are dangerous for other arms of the forces. Marching in front, destroying ramparts, gates and towers, trampling the enemy's army and causing terror.
The young soldier is well paid for his skills, skills that are tapped only rarely. He spends most of his time training or waiting, or enjoying the privileges of army life.
They have the greatest freedom and the most spirit. They practice military pursuits only. Their weapons are forged for them. When there is need to go to war, they go to war, but in times of peace, they make merry, and they receive so much pay from the community that they can easily support others from their salaries.
The privileged life is interrupted by the king's summons. It's time for them to earn their keep. The men of Ashoka's army now train relentlessly, just as the manuals of war dictate.
Infantry, cavalry, chariots, and elephants shall have their training outside the city every day at sunrise, except days of conjunction of the planets. The king shall take a personal interest in the training and make frequent inspections.
On this day in 260 BC, the king has a special interest in the training. He has declared war on the rich kingdom of Kalinga. From its position on the Bay of Bengal, Kalinga controls the trade routes to southern India and beyond. It is also the last great obstacle to controlling India. Kalinga is defended by its own army, with its own elephants. For Ashoka, who owns 8,000, victory will be his only if he can get his men and beasts to Kalinga to fight. If he arrives with his army intact, victory is assured. Before leaving, Ashoka arms his soldiers to the teeth. Across the city, munitions factories pour out thousands of swords, shields, daggers, bows, and arrows. In the royal stables, the elephants are also made ready for the campaign ahead. Each one 11,000 pounds of war machinery, oiled, watered, fed, and inspected. Gray line winds like a river south toward Kalinga. A general takes the lead, then the emperor himself, flanked by bodyguards. Behind him march thousands of elephants, horses, oxen, and soldiers. Then the part-time militia, craftsmen more skilled in carpentry or bakery than in soldiery. Then the companies of allies and mercenaries. Behind them finally roll thousands of wagons, loaded with equipment and food to keep this vast horde alive. Only a few ever see the head or tail of the column. To the rest of the soldiers, it seems endless. Ashoka's troops must cover 500 miles before they reach Kalinga. Fortunately, the highways are as well planned as the army. Roads are the arteries of the Mauryan Empire, and Ashoka has decreed that they be lined with ponds and wells. Without them, the army would perish in days. Along the route, Mauryan villages support the supply train for their own good. By feeding the soldiers, the villagers protect themselves from a common crime of the day, robbery by their own troops. The elephants are a bigger problem. Weighing 3 to 5 tons, they need 500 pounds of fodder a day. Again, Ashoka is prepared. Hundreds of tons of hay lie stockpiled along the route. The road south is well kept. The army manages up to 20 miles a day. Yet at times, the terrain seems as great an enemy as the Kalinga. Engineers and laborers forge ahead, repairing boats, fords, and bridges. Sometimes the elephants themselves form a living bridge. At the end of each day, warriors and beasts rest. None knows when the march will end and the battle begin. They can only march, eat, sleep, and wait. After weeks of marching, the Mauryan army enters the kingdom of Kalinga. A Mauryan spy races back with news for the king. Unexpectedly, men and beasts are halted. The soldiers wonder at the delay, until word comes down the line, the enemy has been spotted. Prepare for battle.